I am here on a pretty Sunday morning. It looks like it's nice outside. So, today we're going to talk about some pandemic tips and hacks that I thought might be helpful. So, most of this stuff are things that I've taken from patients asking me questions and things that I've seen over the last few months. And I thought it would be helpful to share some of those tips. So, I've got a list over here that I'm going to go through, but definitely if you have questions or think of anything, even if it's a fun question not related to the pandemic, just type it in the comments and let me know. So, one of the common questions that I get, and I got that a couple of times this past week, was how do you not fog your glasses while you're wearing a mask? So, I've got my mask here with me. This is my favorite pattern of mask. So, I'm going to put it on and kind of show you how I try to not fog mine. I think it helps a lot to have a wire here in the nose piece because you can kind of form that and fit it a little bit better to your face. And so when you put it on, you want to form that tightly to your face and then try to slip your glasses on just over the fabric there. So I'm going to put this on and really make sure that you get it snug right there over your nose, and then when you put your handy dandy glasses on, you want to make sure that the bridge of the glasses goes right over the fabric, and that kind of helps keep things from fogging up. So that's one thing. If you don't have a mask that has wiring in the nose piece, then you can try to find something like fashion tape. That can be a really good solution. That's kind of like double-sided tape. So either of those things you could probably stick right there at the top and form a little bit of a better seal. Sometimes on our surgical masks that are supposed to be anti-fog, they'll put like a piece of foam. You could do something like a cotton ball or something like that right there, just so that it kind of absorbs that condensation from within your mask, and that can be helpful. So that's one good tip, I think, to help keep your glasses from fogging. While we're on the topic of glasses, some people, depending on your job, you may want a little bit of extra protection. In healthcare, it's really recommended that we wear good eye protection as well. So these are just basic little fashion glasses that I got from Claire's, actually, to do procedures with, but they have a good wide frame so that they cover and touch pretty much around my whole eye. But the problem with these is you need some side protection as well. So this is what I've got. I found these on Amazon. They're just little plastic pieces that can slide on and off, and as long as you get those up all the way to the front like this, then that gives you pretty good protection, and it covers the top and the side. So that's a really good thing. They're inexpensive. I found those on Amazon. They also, now you can find I've seen a lot of ads for glasses that kind of have a side shield and an upper shield that are blue light blocking and that kind of thing. So you can get these for, like I said, these kind of fashion glasses that are just kind of protection for me, or you can get ones for your prescription glasses if you're somebody that wears glasses normally too. So those are some good tips for glasses. As far as masks, this one has been my favorite pattern, and I'll share that in the comments. I have the link to the pattern. I certainly did not make this one. I'm not handy with a sewing machine, but I'll share that link so that you guys can have that pattern if you're interested in it. I think the most important thing, like I said, you want to make sure that it's a snug fit to your face, and then I really like putting in the wiring here for your nose. And the one that I sewed into this one is just a kind of braided floral wire, and so that makes an easy thing that you can sew into that. Some of the other things that I think are important tips on masks: make sure that you're washing them frequently. If you're using a cloth reusable mask, you don't want to go more than 1 or 2 days without washing it, depending on your activities and that kind of thing. So make sure that you're washing them frequently, good warm or hot water, and that's going to keep you protected as well. Making sure you put them on and off properly. So you want to wash or sanitize your hands before you put them on. You want to go for the exterior parts of the mask and slip that over your ears, and then be careful about where you put your hands. You don't want to put it too close to right in front of your face, or wipe your eyes or anything like that, but put it on and try to minimize the touch. And then when you remove it, you want to do the same thing. Reach really for the ears, not the front, and just pull it down from your face, and that can make that pretty easy. But you do want to make sure you sanitize your hands before you put it on or take it off, just to make sure you're not cross-contaminating anything. Mask hair is one that I have not figured out. So I usually wear an N95 with a mask like this over it when I'm in clinic. And I've just given up and mostly put my hair in a ponytail on those days, because it's one of those things I haven't found a good hack for. Definitely the ones that have ear loops. For the ladies, you can let your hair or fix it like you normally do. So I think that's definitely the way to go if you want to look a little bit like your normal self. The other question I've gotten frequently, I've had some trouble myself, and some of my friends have had trouble, what I'm calling maskne, or acne, that people are kind of seeing and think that's related to your mask. I definitely think that's possible. There's a little bit more moisture close to your face and that kind of thing. So that's something I've seen some people kind of feel like they're struggling with. So for that, I would recommend using just some of the good basic over-the-counter products. So you can find usually a good salicylic acid wash, and that's just a face wash, something like Neutrogena or Clean and Clear. Any of those things that you would find in the facial wash section at the store can be a good option, just to kind of give an extra cleanse to your face and target those really common kind of bacteria that cause that. You can also do some of the spot treatments. That's usually like a benzoyl peroxide product, and that can be helpful to do on a daily basis if you feel like you have something like that cropping up. But if you're experiencing some of that, trust me, you are not alone. I've had a lot of people mention that as a problem, so that's definitely a possibility as well. Let's see. Now, that kind of are some of the basic things for everyday changes that we're having to make, wearing equipment and stuff like that. Some of the things that I, always try to touch on are ways to decrease your anxiety or stress, or find better ways to cope with all the changes that we've had to make and are going to have to stick with. So a few things on that topic. I think for many of us, it's good to sometimes procrastinate a little bit. And when you have time off, really take that time off. Don't try to cram all kinds of, to-do lists and that kind of thing into your time off. When you have time off, it's really important to take some of that time completely off and enjoy yourself, whether that's sitting and watching TV for hours, like I've been guilty of doing a few times lately, or going out for a walk, doing exercise, reading a book. There's all kinds of stuff. That goes into one of the other things I was going to talk about, is maybe trying to find some new hobbies. And so I've kind of jotted down a few things that may be helpful, things that you may not have thought about doing before. So a lot of the stuff, especially now, hopefully the weather is going to start to cool down, so some outdoor hobbies would be good and fun to pick up, and you can still do those safely, being at a distance and be outdoors. And you could even consider doing it with some other people as well, as long as you keep your distance. So if you have kids, one thing that can be fun is doing something like a nature walk or a nature hike, and really looking at kind of the trees and the plants, and look for wildlife, little critters that you can spot. Bird watching is something that can be fun. I know here, if you're in the Starkville area, the Knoxville Refuge has a lot of birds and wildlife that can be fun to look at. So that can be fun if you have kids, or even if you don't and you want to go with some friends. That's a good outdoor activity that you can keep your distance and enjoy some things that maybe you wouldn't think to normally do. You can have certainly virtual events. So I've done this with my friends a few times, doing virtual kind of happy hours or group FaceTime hangouts. A lot of the apps and technology and stuff like that now have games that you can incorporate into your kind of group hangout time. So that can be fun to play some virtual games with each other. Doing outdoor events is something that can be done safely. You still want to limit the number of people that you're around, really try to stick to your pod, still try to keep your distance. And if you are going to be close together in an outdoor setting, it is still most beneficial and most safe to wear a mask if you're going to be really close to each other. But you can certainly do outdoor events, games, or things like that. Cornhole is something that's a distance activity, playing tennis, kickball, that kind of thing. You can keep a pretty good distance from each other, and that can be an activity that can get you out of the house and get you moving as well, and get some good exercise. So that's a good thing to try as well. If it's a rainy day, you can do board games. We've done a little bit of that, more than we used to. I think those can be fun things to get back into. You kind of don't realize how fun they are until you start doing them again. Like I said, TV shows, there's tons of guilty pleasure TV shows, or you can find some really good documentaries out there. I've enjoyed watching some good documentaries recently, and so I think that's a good thing to, if it's a rainy day, kind of hang out and watch. As far as exercise is concerned, there's all kinds of opportunities now for online workouts, and so you can do a lot of stuff in your home. You can do stuff that's outdoors too, that's kind of guided. So there's all kinds of apps and things like that that you can find to guide you through workouts and exercise routines, and that can be really good for your physical health, but also your mental health. So that's a good thing as well. Let's see here. I talked some about water last week, so making sure that you're eating healthy and drinking your water. Always have my handy dandy 2-liter bottle with me, so I'm a little bit behind this morning, I think. So that's one thing that I've continued to encourage people to do as well. Let's see, one other thing that my family personally kind of has struggled with throughout the pandemic is how to visit my grandmother. So she is in her 90s and pretty healthy, but still with her age is definitely in the high risk category. So we were very, very careful at first, and really didn't see her at all, especially me, because I was seeing, sick people on a fairly regular basis. And so now that this has become such a long-standing event that we're going to have to continue to maintain all these precautions, it's really difficult for a lot of people, especially like her in that age group, where she lives by herself and she, doesn't have the freedom really to go visit her friends, and technology is sometimes a little bit difficult for her to navigate. We've been really lucky that we've been able to group Facebook video with her and do some family Zoom things with her, so that we could chat and get the whole family together. But there are times, and especially over such a long period, that it's not quite the same as being in person. So we had a good discussion with her and as a family that we want to try and increase how much we're seeing her, but we're going to definitely do that safely. So I have the last couple of weeks tried to have lunch with her once a week, and we either sit outside or we both wear our mask the whole time, keep a distance, and sit at complete opposite ends of her dining room table. And we've been able to do that safely. So I think you do have to balance that with what your particular needs are and kind of who you're trying to care for in your family. I'm certainly not exposing myself to anyone unnecessarily, and so I'm really trying to limit my exposure and her exposure in that way. But there are safe ways that you can do that kind of thing. I wash my hands constantly when I'm there. I don't touch anything that I don't absolutely have to touch, and like I said, wear my mask the entire time that I'm there. So that's one thing to consider is, ways that you can visit those kind of people, even if it's just outside, and that can be really helpful for them, I think, in the time that we're in. The last thing that I was going to touch on this morning are some of the kind of questions around being isolated and quarantined and when you should really get tested, because there have been some kind of questions and debates about that recently, just with some of the guidelines that are changing and maybe a little bit confusing to people. So in general, and here especially in the state of Mississippi, an exposure is considered if you are within 6 feet of someone for 15 minutes and they're known to be positive for coronavirus. So if I were positive for coronavirus and someone had been around me within 6 feet for 15 minutes, cumulatively over a day or something like that, for example, if it's at work or at school, then that person would be considered to have been exposed. And it's definitely recommended that if you have been exposed in that manner, that you isolate yourself, meaning that you stay home, you don't go out anywhere, and it would also be recommended that you get tested. Now, the tricky part where people have questions about that are, well, if I test negative, I shouldn't have to stay isolated. And that is something that is a little bit difficult to navigate, especially in a scenario like we're in right now. But it really is recommended, if you've had that close of an exposure, that you do remain isolated for that 14-day time period, because certainly if you test early, your test may not be positive and you can continue to develop viral particles that you can shed and be contagious to others over that 14-day period. So a close exposure like that, it's really recommended that you remain isolated for that 14-day period. Now, quarantine refers more specifically to someone who is tested positive, and that means that you are absolutely, isolated, don't go anywhere. That's basically a legal health officer order, that if you're positive, you have to stay home for that 14-day period. Now, the question about changing that to 10 days that has come up more recently is really targeted for people who are deemed essential workers. And for the most part, that's left up to someone's employer, because everybody can be essential in different ways. And so if you are someone who's been positive, but you remain asymptomatic, you don't feel bad, you're better, and you don't have fever, without the use of something like Tylenol or ibuprofen for a 2 to 3 day period, then you can return using all your same precautions, your mask and all that stuff, after a 10-day period. So the most important aspect of that is that your symptoms have resolved and you've not had fever before you return there. And again, that's meant for people who are really essential workers, which, depending on what job you have or what business you're with, that definition can kind of vary. So I hope that aspect is helpful. I know that's been really confusing for a lot of people, but hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity. A couple of pages that I wanted to mention just to follow before I get off and let you guys get on with your morning. The Dear Pandemic page that I've mentioned a couple of times has really good, simple kind of question and answer things that are backed by really good evidence. So it's a group of PhD researchers who all have different areas of expertise, and they are spending all of their time researching all the most important aspects, all the way from how to do things safely in your day-to-day, what the vaccine trials are looking like, how testing is going, all different types of topics as it relates to coronavirus in general. They have some really good, easy graphics and really great tips. So that's a page that I've been following. I've been sharing a lot of their stuff. So that's, again, Dear Pandemic. And I think it's a really great page to follow. Simple stuff that's easy to understand. And then the other thing, on Fridays, the Mississippi State Medical Association always hosts now kind of a Q&A and an update with Dr. Dobbs, the health officer for the state, and that can kind of have some good answers to common questions, updates and clarifications on the guidelines and things like that. So that's something that you can find on the MSMA Facebook page, and tune into that or submit questions to them that can be answered during the week. So that's something that I've been following pretty closely and has been helpful just for general updates. And so I think that can be useful as well. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you all have a good day. Hopefully we don't get any rain. It doesn't look like it's too cloudy outside right now. So hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Remember to take a little bit of time off and enjoy things, and let me know your questions for next time.